Banerjee from Dallas, Texas, with yet another episode of Talking Books from Blue Pencil. And it is such a pleasure to be there after a long time, and that too during the auspicious month of April, which happens to be the National Poetry Writing Month. It is very special for us poets, authors, especially those who write poetry, pursue poetry, have passion for poetry, read poetry, everything related to poetry. This month is very significant. Maya Angelou had a very famous quote: "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story within you." And what the phenomenal poet and author Maya Angelou said about depicting one's stories to the world is equally applicable to poetry and storytelling, both of it, because we know there is a storytelling or a narrative component in poetry too. And it is her words are more true in poetry, as poetry writing is the byproduct of a very restless and volatile mind that reacts instinctively to the prejudices, incongruities, constraints of our society. Poetry is the instant reaction. We take time to carve out a story or a novel, right? But poetry comes instinctively and instantly to us. About the importance of poetry, I can go on with several numerous quotes. One of them is by Percy Bysshe Shelley, who happens to be a very favorite poet of mine. He had said, "Poets are the unacknowledged legislators of this world," which gives us a hint of how important poetry is, not only as an art form, but as a means of expression in our social life, in our socio-political sphere. And since the time poetry has evolved and developed, it has seen various altitudes and various vicissitudes, right? From Shelley to Walt Whitman, Charles Baudelaire to Langston Hughes, Sylvia Plath, Rita Dove, Maya Angelou to the most contemporary poets. All of them have used their poetic voices, their unique styles, as forms of empowerment and dissent. So, what do we get from there? Poetry is a very important tool of empowerment and dissent. And today, we have gathered in the month of April, about which the famous poet of the modernist era, T.S. Eliot, had said in his very famous long poem, The Wasteland. So, I'm just reading out a few lines from the first poem of Wasteland, The Burial of the Dead. "April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, steering dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow, feeding a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us, coming over the Starnberger Sea. With a shower of rain, we stopped in the colonnade and went on in sunlight into the Hofgarten and drank coffee and talked for an hour. And when we were children staying at the Archduke's, my cousins, he took me out on a sled and I was frightened. He said, 'Mary, Mary, hold on.' And down we went in the mountains. There you feel free. I read much of the night and go south in the winter." So, through this very first stanza, we feel the resonance of deep, profound, instinctive thoughts of the poet, which depicts the significance of the month of April, when there's a rejuvenation happening. And in the month of winter, maybe some tragedies have happened. In the summer, there is hope, there is resurgence, and coming back to poetry, coming back to life. So we have three very important poetic voices in our August gathering today. And they will accompany yours truly, who is also a very small poet in her own right. And together we will discuss how poetry and also spoken words, not only poetry, because poetry is spoken words now, right now, how both can be vehicles of social change in our prosaic and comatose world. There's a lot of things happening socially, politically, right? And also, we will have readings from these poets, readings that matter, and we will also talk about the content of contemporary poetry that educates and empowers our society. So, I would first like to go to a very prolific poet, author, academician, whom we all revere and love so much for her writings, her outpourings. She's so prolific. Uh, Let us have Santosh D first, Santosh Bakaya. Santosh D, you have written the very famous Ballad of Bapu, which is the poetic biography of Gandhiji. And we all have read it, loved it. It's in limerick form. And then you have written a collection of peace poems, Where Are the Lilacs? Then you have written Songs of Belligerence, which I think is a dirge of humanity for our times. You have reflected on so many contemporary happenings there. And you have also experimented in various poetic forms and written on numerous themes. So, what would poetry mean to you in your own personal space as well as your social and academic life? Would you
Okay,
say
so
it is a medium of dissent and resistance for you?
thank you. Thank you so much, Lopa Banerjee. Thank you, Dr. Koshi. Thank you, Blue Pencil and Antara. And thank you, Chitali. And I remember you wrote somewhere that you will be in conversation with some heavyweights. I am a heavyweight in the
Yeah.
sense that for the past 1 month, I have been just writing sedentary, writing poetry on these prompts by mostly by Rina Prasad and Dr. Ampat Koshi. And sitting here, I have become a heavyweight, not a poetic heavyweight as Dr.
You're
Koshi and
heavyweight
Dr.
by no
Yeah,
means are
it,
you
even
anything
though,
small
yeah,
about heavyweight.
yeah,
Everybody
no,
knows
I'm
that,
heavyweight.
right?
I am a heavyweight in the sense that I have put on a lot of weight. Just sitting here and writing poetry for the past 23 days on Naporimo. Anyway, and that is a good experience, very good experience. And Dr. Koshi there, he wields a very strong lash. You know, when I don't write, he comes to the messenger and says, "Where's your poem?" So I have to write, even if I don't want to. When you were talking of Ballad of Bapu, here it is. And as I have been saying many a time, that this was also written as a challenge because one of my students in my MPhil class, he said, Gandhi ke din lad gaye. We don't need a Gandhi, we need a Hitler. And he considered himself a poet of sorts. And right now, many people know him. He is a well-known poet, Hindi poet now. And he was in my MPhil class in the year 2012. And he told me in very arrogant tones, Madam Gandhi ke din lad gaye, or I want you to write a poetic biography of Gandhi. I said, have you read anything about Gandhi? He said, no, I've not read anything about Gandhi. Then I told him, but why do you criticize him such a lot? He said, I don't want to read anything about him, but if you write a poetic biography of Mahatma Gandhi, I promise I'll read it. So initially, I was very, very angry at him, but then I mulled over the idea. And because I used to write in limericks, I had this idea in my mind that I could, this was a possibility, that I could write a poetic biography of Mahatma Gandhi in the AABBA rhyme scheme. So that is how it started. And this was just on a whim. But I did not know. I did not know that I would make it into a poetic biography of 300 pages, and it became a hit. And the first copy of this book I gave to that student of mine, and he said, "Madam, uh, one day I will translate this into Hindi." And initially, he was a great detractor of Gandhi, and now he teaches in the Gandhian Studies department, and he is a great follower of Gandhi, and he has changed. So this is one of my great achievements. This poetry changed him.
So,
This poetic
Santosh,
biography.
do you think this was your first step towards using poetry as dissent and resistance in some sort of way? Would you say
Yes,
that?
I think it was because
And
earlier I used to write limericks, funny limericks, and but although I have used the rhyme scheme of a limerick, I have not lampooned Gandhi here, and I have tried to tell all the detractors of Gandhi that Gandhiji is very very relevant. We need the Mahatma, like we need him, we need King, and so this is poetry of dissent in the sense. I the challenge that that guy threw at me that day resulted in this. And this is, I am very, very proud of this achievement of mine. And this is where this poetry of dissent started. And later on, where are the lilacs, of course, and then songs of belligerence. All these are anti-war poems. I talk of peace. I talk of love. So this is how it started. And TSL has a big role to play in all this. TSL, the Significant League, and Dr. Ampat Koshi. Although I keep sparring with him, yet he is the last he is the lash that has sort of lashed me into writing. I keep writing because of TSL. And thank you, Significant League, for that.
And like, how do you balance poetry in your personal life? Do you think poetry is personal as well as political for you? Like, as a
Yeah,
tool, right?
yeah, it is personal as well as political for me. But let me reiterate that although I feel very strongly about all the things that are happening around, I am not very vocal about the political happenings around us. But sometimes the anguish pours on paper, and there's no stopping me. Although I try to stay away from those political outpourings. Dr. Koshi is very vocal. I'm not. I am very subtle in what I have to say. So, although I write very strongly about injustice, about war, against war, I talk of peace. My words are not. I am not very vocal about that. I'm not very incisive, so to say. That is what I think.
Okay. I would love to go to Koshi sir, and then I will come back to you again, Santoshdi, for some readings of poetry. First, I would like to go now to Koshi sir, Ampat Koshi, and ask him that, sir, you have written thousands of poems in a multitude of subjects, such versatile subjects, which range from I have a particular fondness towards your love poems. They are mixed with so much of divinity. And I have also seen that you write poems as a personal and political tool. And you have so many published poems in book forms, journals, anthologies. And most importantly, you have authored the book Treatise on Poetry for Beginners. I have had acquired the book from, I think I got it from Amazon, and very recently I have given it to a university library here at the University of North Texas, because I think it's a very, very significant resource which explains how poetry should be read and how it should be interpreted in its various forms and nuances. So, I would like our audience to know about the relevance of, like, what in your eyes is the relevance of NaPoWriMo, National Poetry Writing Month, in April, and how did it strike you? And can you share your journey with it and the formation of your literary group, which is the Significant League? Many of us know about it, but many others don't. So, just to give a heads up to them, and a few words about the International Ruel Prize of Poetry, which is in its seventh year or eighth year, if I'm not wrong. So, a few words about that too, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Lopa, for allowing me to be here. I am not at all a heavyweight. I am very thin, unlike Santosh. And
All of you are heavyweight than me, at least. So,
uh,
the reason why
and
I'm representing you also.
thanks to Antara and
I
Ruth and
have,
Sid.
I have, sorry for this intrusion. I have become a heavyweight lately in the past
Yeah,
23 days because I've been writing three, four, five poems on each Naporimo prompt, all because of Dr. Ampat Koshi, who is the villain of the piece.
yeah. So I also I want to yeah, I'll talk about what you said. Yeah, our topic is relevance of poetry, and poetry is very relevant. Although people may have two opinions about it, some saying it's no longer relevant, some saying it's not. But just by running NaPoWriMo, I see that people want so much to write poetry. They write poetry like mad for no reason. Many of the people who are writing in NaPoWriMo, I know four NaPoWriMos are running now already. I know four of them. One is ours, TSL. One is the original one by Maureen, who started it. Artoons in, they have an NaPoWriMo going on. Then women empowered groups, Smita Baumik, they have a NaPoWriMo going on. Everywhere people are giving prompts. Everywhere people are writing like mad. Everywhere people are reading. So we see that poetry has a life of its own which no one can stop. It has a relevance, it has therapeutic value, it has confessional value, it has a value that it helps us to connect, it has a value that it helps us to express.
And it helps us to
Uh,
heal too, right?
yes, therapeutic value. You know, it's
Yeah.
a healing tool. And people just can't stop talking about themselves and things around them, the social scene, the political scene, the family life, whatever it is, you know. And poetry, as you said, is very instinctive. And, you know, it's the first thing that comes to people, especially now that poetry has been freed from all its rules.
Mhm.
So, this is one thing I want to say.
So is it
Poetry is
good or
still,
bad, sir? I would like to ask you. Like
yeah,
poetry has been free from all its constraints that happened in the yesteryears. Is do you think it is a welcome initiative?
I don't think that it's anything that we talk about. It has both its good side and its bad side. So I don't think it's entirely bad because it has brought up many poets. Now, the second thing that I want to say is, you know, you spoke about uh, forming the significant league, how Ruel Prize is 8 years now, a treatise
Hmm.
on poetry for beginners. But what I want to say is, you know, as you keep writing, for all of us, I think that, you know, something happens which we can't explain, where, you know, the writing takes you over instead of you doing the writing. So, in that way, I have brought out some books that I know will not easily die. And one is a treatise on poetry for beginners. And Santosh has brought out Ballad of Bapu and, you know, the book on Martin Luther King Jr. I don't think these books will easily die. Even my book on Beckett or Lopa, you know, although you have brought out many good books, I think your work on Tagore, on Ashapurna Devi, your first book for your mother, Thwarted Escape, and your last collection, which hasn't come out, which I have read, I don't think these things will die easily. So, poetry, translation, literature, nonfiction, short story, novel, all these things have a life of their own and they possess you and they come out through you and literary criticism and theory and they live. And even Chaitali's book, I just got it, you know, on translation. I don't think that's really a masterly work with so many good stories translated of writers I've never heard of and writers I've heard of, and stories I've read and stories I haven't read. I don't think it will die easily. So, to come back to sum it up, poetry is very wide. There are many mansions, there are many anthologies. I'm holding these two here. These are two of the anthologies I
Yeah.
worked with. This is yours, Lopa and
One is
Santosh. This
about our
is
parents, right?
our
Umbilical
parents,
cords.
yeah, which,
That
you
seems
know,
a
I thought,
lifetime ago, such a long
yes,
time back.
but you know, it's very precious to me.
Yeah,
And
very
that's
much.
another thing I want to say that, you know, the definition of literature for me is not what people think. I think literature is unbiased. And I don't think it's limited to nation or language or anything like that. So many anthologies are coming out, and people go after anthologies which are published by big publishers and they canonize it, the poems in them. I'm not saying there are not good poems there. I'm not saying the editors don't matter. I'm not saying that the poets don't matter. But I think that a lot of that is biased, socially or politically or economically biased. And I would like to work in a space where I feel that I am working with works that will one day be noticed, and then people will notice that these works mattered as much or more. These books that I showed you, I think the
Mhm.
day will come and people realize that they are very significant and perhaps more significant than many things that people now consider significant in the mainstream.
So they will
So I'll
have
Allow
end
me
a
there.
to
shelf life,
allow me
right?
to intrude. Allow me to intrude here, Dr. Koshi. Lately, the poems that you have, some of the poems that you have written on the Naporimo prompts, they're excellent. They're epic masterpieces. And
Yeah.
you should never underestimate yourself. This is what you have been doing lately. And your pet peeve, I believe, is no one reads me. Everyone reads you. You realize that everyone reads you and learns a lot from you. And some of the
Mm.
poems are real, and all of you will agree that some of the poems written in the present Naporimo, they are excellent masterpieces. So hats off to
Thank
you.
you.
True,
Thank
true.
you. Thank you, Santosh.
And also about like, sir, last few words about the Rural Prize. Like, how was it John, we all know the background of it, like the
I,
ones who are
actually,
associated with it, but
I was doing a lot of research on the Nobel Prize
Mhm.
from childhood, in a sense. In Trivandrum, there's a public library. I used to go and sit alone in the section which houses all the books by the Nobel Prize winners. And I used to read and read. I think I've read more Nobel Prize winners than any other kind of writing in my whole life. I know a lot about Nobel Prize winners. I think that was a seed. And, when I started Ruel Prize, I wanted to bring up something, there were a lot of people saying the Nobel Prize is biased. Every prize is biased because, it started in Switzerland, and the first prizes were given to Swiss writers, naturally, and then to Swedish writers and writers in nearby countries. And only gradually it has become a prize that is becoming more and more well balanced, well rounded out. They've even given prizes now to so many countries, to women, to so many different kinds of writers. So when I started Ruel Prize, I wanted to address the issue that a prize has to carve a place for itself and produce work that's significant over time, over a long period of time. And that India doesn't have a prize that uh, you know again, I want to bring in this idea of impartiality.
Hmm.
And I would like to think that Ruel Prize will one day be a very big prize. It's already quite big because of persistence. And I believe that many of the writers we produced, one day the world will see that those prizes were given impartially, and as a result, we found many great writers who otherwise would not have been noticed, who have not been noticed, like by Sahitya Academy or by Jnanpith or by uh, JCB, or prizes like that in India, which are
Yeah,
otherwise considered big.
Man Booker Prize and
And
those
those are abroad. Man Booker,
abroad.
Man
Yeah,
Asian.
Man
Of course,
Asian.
I am not yet comparing myself with Man Booker or Man Asian or Pulitzer or Nobel, but I
Mhm.
believe we'll eventually reach there if we go on with what we are doing.
Thanks a lot, sir, for all the insight and information. And we will come back to your poetry again. Uh,
Yeah.
but before that, I will shoot my first question for Chaitali Sengupta. Chaitali Di, you have come up as a very discerning poet in the recent years, and you have been published in quite a significant number of books. And you have your solo poetry collection, Cross Stitched Words. I've read the book. It's a beautiful collection of poems. And you have your poetry in translation, which is very unique. You have translated Tagore's poems and songs, which have been very striking and unique. And also, I would like to tell our viewers that your book, Cross Stitch Words, has received honorable mention at the New England Book Festival, USA, which I know about them because my debut collection, Let the Night Sing, had received the same award there in that same platform. They are very good. So, what are your thoughts as a published poet now that we belong to the same poetry fraternity? What are your thoughts as a published poet that you have about the role of poetry? Because these times that we are in are strife ridden. There are so many social upheavals, political happenings coming up one after the other. And what is the role of poetry there, and how important is Naporimo in your understanding, the importance of National Poetry Writing Month? Should there be the existence of National Poetry Writing Month, or poetry is for all times? Just your a few of your insights into that.
Yeah, to answer your first of all, let me first begin by thanking Antara and her team at Blue Pencil for inviting me here to talk about poetry and its importance, something which I always like to do. And if that happens to be in the august company of Dr. Bakaya and Dr. Koshi and you, my dear friend Lopamudra Banerjee, as the mentor, then you know what? I can keep on talking for ages. But we don't have ages, we have the stipulated time. So to answer your question on the role of poetry, I think I'm going to start with what T.S. Eliot said once. And if I remember the quote, he said, poetry may make us from time to time a little more aware of the deeper unnamed feelings. I think that was the quote.
Yeah.
And I personally have always been attracted to the words, and words in verses have always attracted me. And I believe that, writing poetry actually enables us to move very closer to our core. That's what I always believe. And our body is not only a physical body, we also have an emotional body. That's what
Yeah.
my feeling is. And
The spiritual
uh,
sense of consciousness.
exactly.
It's
So,
not just
so
the body.
yeah.
Beyond
So
that, yeah.
yeah, we do have an emotional body, and the nourishment to that emotional body is also very essential. And poetry in that sense is a kind of nourishment to that emotional body that we have. And science these days have also proven, that humans have it embedded in them to rise to poetry, to be inspired by string of words. And poetry has always been a part of our lives, because if you ask me, it is a kind of an art which resides in the soul, and the spirit of man cannot, for very long, stay aloof towards poetry. And if we also see it from a different angle, we can see that poetry helps us to see beneath the surface of everything, and we then realize that there is a deeper meaning and significance.
Mhm.
So if you remember, when we were studying in our graduation about Wordsworth
Yeah.
called it spontaneous.
Romantic poets. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Coleridge
he
and
called
Keats.
it spontaneous overflow of powerful
Powerful
feelings.
emotions. Yeah.
And if we talk about Somerset Maugham, who is also one of my very favorite writers, he called it, poetry is the crown of literature, and it is still the crown of literature. It is still the crown of literature. And especially during the times of turmoil, during the times of war, poetry, like you were saying in the very very beginning to Dr. Bakaya, that poetry acts as a form of resistance. And we cannot really forget the poets who wrote during those two world wars, Wilfred Owen and Rupert Brooke, Siegfried Sassoon. And their works were very strong, and they were condemning the war, and those surely actually made a huge impact on the young generations. And I feel that even today, the young generation, they do read those poems. Maybe the numbers are few. They not everybody is going to read a Wilfred Owen these days, but they
Yes.
do read. And
They
what
need
I
to read to
yeah,
get greater understanding and grasp over what is happening, just not the surface level, but beyond that.
yeah, I can share with you one very very recent experience that I had because of the Ukraine war. That it is in, we are in Europe. It is felt very closely.
Yeah.
Ukraine, the war. So there was this young person, and I asked him. We were just having simple chats, and I was very surprised. Okay, this generation has never faced a war before, and this is something which they are facing it from very close quarters.
Mm-hmm.
But you will be surprised. They still, they go to Google, they Google up Wilfred Owen or the First World War poets. They do that. So that also gave me an idea, or gave me some satisfaction that, what, the role of poetry will always be there. And if we go back 2 years back, during the times of the pandemic, we have also seen that during time of the crisis times, everywhere I
Lots of
look,
poetry has been written. That
yeah,
much I can say
there
from
was a
Facebook and
reading,
Instagram.
there was a poetry workshop, there was a Friday night readings. So because poetry, like Dr. Koshi was telling us, poetry has a therapeutic power. It has the power to create a sense of solace. And it is also a very beautiful way to process the larger events that are happening around us. So of course poetry is very relevant, and if you ask me, it will always be very relevant. And about your question, the National Poetry Writing Month, if you ask me, in my eyes, it is very relevant. It is very relevant. It because it gives a kind of a beautiful expanse of freedom to the writers, and the writers are free to do whatever they want with their words. So that's why for me, the National Poetry Writing Month has always been very challenging. In the beginning, I'm very stressed out. I think, oh, no, I can't do this. And this time the prompts
I remember I goaded you into participating in Naporimo. Though
Yeah,
I cannot do it as frequently because of the other work, I'm getting
yeah,
caught up with it. But
yeah,
I continuously read all the outpourings, most of them, no, if not all. And
yeah,
I feel that if I could, gosh, I could write like them every day,
yeah.
but it's
No,
kind of constrained to me
this
right.
year, this
Let me add something here. Earlier I used to be very averse to writing on prompts. I would feel constricted and shackled, and I would say I would almost throw a tantrum saying, "No, no, no, I'm not going to write on any prompt." But lately I realized that some of my best poems have been written on prompts, and the prompts in TSL or elsewhere wherever I have written. So these prompts are good because they and recently there was some prompts on this. Asleep but not oblivious of the unslept, unsleeping.
yeah,
This line from Tonight No Poetry Will Serve by Adrian Rich. And
It's a very
I
good
wrote
thing.
almost, yeah, I wrote almost 6 or 7 poems on that. I posted just one. But this was just an avalanche of poetry, it just happened. So these prompts are very good. And they can be confessional, they can be cathartic, and as
Yeah.
Robin Williams says in Dead Poet Society, we all stay alive for poetry. And let me confess,
Yeah, it's
today,
a very favorite quote of mine
yeah,
and of
yeah, yeah.
mine too.
And
And
today, I think,
Saptarshim, my earlier books which happened, they happened due to the presence of Naporimo, because I was writing poetry like mad at that time. You know about Let the Night Sing and also Woman and Her Muse that followed. The poetry part of it, apart from the memoir, which is mostly prose, the poetry part of it was originated mainly due to the Significant League and the Naporimo that was happening. Didn't post all my response to all the prompts, but I tried to collate everything into the book form then. So I'm
that
so
is
grateful to Naporimo for that. I wasn't able to keep up the momentum in the later years after that, but I hope to come back to it sometime if, like, God permits, if destiny permits. But
so
I
basically,
surely
Lopa,
read the poems
if
based
I
on
may
the
add, I will only add this, that for the new writers, for the budding poets, it requires a great deal of commitment, that I understand, and in the
yeah.
beginning it feels a bit intimidating also, but it need not be stressful. That's what I can say. I mean, you can sit with your favorite cup of tea and see where your imagination takes you. And
Makes
the
you.
best part is that every day you don't have to be perfect. That is what I realized. Before, I was sitting and I was thinking, oh my god, I really have to write a perfect piece, but perfect pieces do not happen like that. So
I don't even think any of my pieces are perfect.
not
I
not
feel like working
neither
on
are
all
mine.
of them over and over again. I
Neither are
find so,
mine. when
yeah.
i when i when I finish it and when it is published, and then when I look back, I find so many mistakes and I feel that, oh my god, I could have written it like this. But even then, whatever we have said, whatever we have to say about it, the fact remains that Naporimo is a beautiful tradition and it should continue. And about the TSL, I can only say that the prompts that we get from Dr. Koshi or from Dr. Bakaya, there are others also, Sunita Singh, Gauri
Yeah.
Dikshit,
Even
and
Reena keeps
others.
giving
It
prompts
is,
from
it is,
the back
yeah,
end. She doesn't come to TSL often, but she
no,
keeps
but
giving
these people
prompts.
are
Am I
there, and
right, Dr. Koshi? Reena gives all the significant prompts that we have, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Reena,
yeah. Reena only gives
Prasad,
the prompts.
Yeah.
Reena
Reena
Prasad has
Prasad.
been
She's
giving
a
wonderful, wonderful,
fantastic poet.
wonderful content.
Yeah.
She's a
She's such
fantastic
a
writer,
fantastic
great
poet
poet.
and a
And
beautiful
in
person. I
fact,
miss her so much.
she has written the foreword, the introduction to this book, this Where Are the Lilacs, Reena Prasad. She is a great poet. Hats off to her. She writes beautifully.
yeah,
And
and the prompts are equally beautiful because the prompts really challenge our imagination. And this month, or this time, I am very amazed to see the quality of our poets in TSL. And so, to coming back to your question, Lopa, writing poetry in the month of April, yes, it is. It just gives us a chance to visualize and to wonder and to think about the miraculous, the unexpected, the unknown. Everything is there. So if you ask me, I am very happy with it. It should go on. It's a beautiful tradition.
thank you. Thank you, Chaitali Di, for this beautiful response. I will
Yeah,
again go
I
back to,
can I add one thing, Lopa?
yeah, yeah, sure, sir.
You know
Please go
about
ahead.
Naporimo, for example, many people who write in TSL Naporimo, or, I started with Maureen's Naporimo. I did that for 2 years and then even half an year. Then in TSL, I thought we can do better. But Maureen is doing a very good job. But she doesn't give certificates. She rarely, gives a recommendation to some poem by some poet, and you have to be happy with that. But you see, the people who come to TSL, new people come every time, old people come. Some don't complete, some complete, some ask for Pandarathon, one more month of prompts. But you see, many of them don't even know there's a certificate, there's a prize, there are books. They just write
Yeah,
because it gives them so much happiness and freedom, and that I think is the real spirit of poetry.
Poetry. Yeah.
Let me add something here. 2 years back, when NaPoWriMo ended, the April month ended, this my messenger was full of messages. What next, ma'am? What next? So we started this Pandarathon. So another 1 month of writing poetry. They said it is so addictive and so
Yeah.
cathartic, and so it's a beautiful writing poem. So they got addicted. They said we had nothing to look forward to after the April month. So
after
we
the,
started this
yeah.
Pandarathon, and it became a great success.
And I
So we'll
remember one of my very, very significant, like, which is very close to my heart. One of my very significant short stories was a result of of a Pandarathon prompt, which, sir, you have read it, and Santosh Didi, you have also read it. It was published in reviews run by Varsha Singh, I think. It was based on 36 Chorangi Lane, which was a film written and directed by Aparna Sen. I took the courage and liberty. It was a great blasphemy on my part, but I went ahead and wrote a sequel to it, based on a Pandarathon prompt, which was Roots, and the name of my story was Roots. I remember that very fondly.
Yeah, and even see, we started with Rural Prize, but now we have Rural Prize, we have Nissim Prize, we have KN Bakaya Prize. So it keeps expanding because people want it. People are eager for good literature, good poetry, for opportunities to write, to be read, and it's going forward.
Yeah,
Correct.
especially after the pandemic, and after the lockdown, which is not there now, but there was a time when people were stuck at home, and with all the work from home things they were doing, poetry took precedence. Poetry, writing, art. There were so many outpourings because it came from a deep sense of desperation. Uh, Considering the vulnerability of those times, and poetry and writing gave wings to so many people, starting from those times, that it's really amazing. Now, sir, and Santosh, they both, I would like to ask you a question. Any of you can reply, or both of you can reply, because we at TSL know that you both have been there at not only the helm of TSL's, the Significant League, but you have brought out various anthologies of poetry from the group. Tell our audience about the recent anthologies. How has been the experience of curating and editing the Roseate Sonnet anthology? And give us some special anecdotes which the audience would enjoy knowing.
let
Do you
me
have
let
the
me
book
say
with
something
you?
here. This Roseate Sonnet anthology was the handiwork of Gauri Dixit, Sunita Singh, Vinita McCott, Bhuvneshwari
Yeah, there
Shivkumar
were many
Shankar, Dr.
editors, and
Koshi
you
AV,
two were
and
among them. Yeah,
of course, you wrote the introduction. So Dr.
yeah.
Koshi will say something about it.
I just want to say that it was a very enjoyable experience, and as a result, I have written now a book which is a whole brief definition and history of the form of the sonnet, its development till today. As a result of this book, and I mentioned Lopa and Santosh and Sunita and Gauri, everyone in it. Because I started this form, and now more than 500 poems have been written in this, and I'm not joking.
Yeah, it's a
Because
fact.
I
And you know,
because
sir, I have
I
performed with a Kathak dancer on my Roseate
yeah
Sonnet, which I think
yeah
is such a unique experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how it spreads, and that's because I stumbled upon a kind of form and that's sufficiently complex and simple. That's what I feel. And we live in a world where if you give people a form, people think form is dead. But if it's a semi form and they can also participate in creating it, and now we live in a world where COVID is on top of everyone's mind. The climate crisis is there, war is there,
Or
the
is
Ukraine war, and then there's a political situation in different countries like India, which is a battle like between what some people like me call fascism on the one side and democracy on the other side. So people have a lot to write about, and they want something between freedom and rigor in how to write about it. So when you give them a form saying it's only 14 lines, and the first stanza is 4 lines, the second is 4 lines, and then you have 2 lines, and then you have a fourth stanza, which is an acrostic for rose. And you don't have to rhyme, you don't have to use meter, but if you want, you can use meter and rhyme, and it's up to you, or syllabic count. Then they feel I can also do something with this form, I can make it my own. And that's
Let
why
me tell
this
you,
book, you see, Santosh has written a whole 50 Rosette sonnets to
I,
form a
honest,
story.
honestly speaking, I
And
had a wonderful time. I have also rhymed. Rhyme and meter is also there in my poetry.
yeah,
And you heard the scream, didn't you? I had a wonderful time writing it, and I did not know where to stop. And
right.
I really enjoyed writing it. So many, almost 50 pages and 50 sonnets. So once again, 3 cheers for Dr. Koshi for
you know,
inventing this form.
Dr. Koshi, you would be amazed to know my daughter Sharanya.
uh,
She is now writing sonnets because I
right.
somehow introduced her to not only sonnets but roseate sonnets. So someday she
Yeah,
would like to
right one.
give her hand in writing roseate sonnet. She is
Yeah,
already
yes.
writing sonnets, and when she discovered how roseate sonnet is written, she said, "Oh my God, this sounds so amazing and enjoyable. I want to try it for once."
Yeah, yeah.
So
Even
she
in
has
June,
submitted to
we are
a
going to.
contest in her school. I would encourage her to write a roseate sonnet one day.
Yeah, in June we are having a workshop which is around the Rosette sonnet here in Bangalore. So it's
Oh,
just going to
wow.
spread.
Is it
So,
virtual
but
or is it in person?
no, no, in person in a
Okay.
school. Yeah.
Okay.
And
So,
Lopa, then there is this anthology, and Vandita Dharni has done a tremendous job of this, of editing this, and the others, Dr. Koshi and Dr. Santosh Bhagat, we are also there, but it is
Yeah. This is the
Vandita Dharni
Cheshire
who is
Cat
amending.
one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Radhi
Yeah.
Ravens, Cheshire Cats and Rusty Rats, and this was also the result of a Naporimo prompt.
Naporimo
And the
prompt.
poems are very humorous, very witty, beautifully done. And the book is beautiful. Hats off to the editor, Vandita Dharni. Our names are just there. We didn't do anything, but Vandita Dharni did everything. So it's a
I want to
beautiful,
say,
beautiful.
yeah, I would see, in the first one there are 101 poets, and in this one there are 77 poets. So these anthologies are also something that people look forward to because, they become participants, and they feel,
Yeah.
very happy that their poem has come out, and it's good
And they have
quality.
been beautifully, beautifully brought out by Authors
Brought out
Press.
by, yeah, and Sudarshan,
Beautifully brought out. Yeah, Sudarshan ji
Sudarshan
has
has
done a
done
wonderful
a
job of
wonderful
both
job,
the books.
wonderful
Yeah,
job.
wonderful,
I
wonderful
mean,
job.
even this, you can see the quality. Muffled
Muffled
Moons.
Moons. It's a
Yeah,
book
I
very
mean,
close to my heart.
yeah,
I wish we could do more promotion regarding that. But the
it
poems
will
and
happen.
stories, not only poems, but short stories, so
Yeah,
wonderful and so pertinent because they will stay with us for a long time. It's theme based, and it's about child abuse and gender violence, which is a theme that
team,
unfortunately will remain pertinent for a long time.
long time.
It's a menace in our society, and some decent needs to happen. See, so that is why I always stress that poetry is not only an art form which is beautiful in itself, it has a social function because through poetry and through storytelling we see so much of dissent and empowerment, resistance happening, which is a reaction to all the ill happenings, all the menaces, all the social evils that happen, which is timeless actually, because these will stay, these stories, these poems will stay either in libraries or in online archives. They will stay and they will reign in people's hearts because they are not only emotional outpourings, they give a social message. So that is the bigger picture of it. With that, I would like to go to Chaitalidi now. I have one last question for her. Chaitalidi, you have not only been a poet, but we have worked together in translation projects.
Yeah.
So you have been a significant translator apart from being a published poet. And also as a translator of poetry, which not many people do. We translate prose, but you also translate poetry. And you have a significant contribution in literature in translating Bengali poets, including Tagore. How do you think translation of poetry in like from vernacular languages to English is significant? And what is the impact of poetry in translation? If you can just share your insights on that.
It's a very good question, Lopa. Translation in general is a very daunting task, and
Very daunting, that I can say as a
you know that
translator.
yourself. Yeah, you are a brilliant translator. Your work on Bokul
Thank you.
Katha, Ashapurna Devi's was absolutely brilliantly done, and that book truly requires a huge, it should reach to many hands, to many people. That's what I believe. But then back to the point, translation is a daunting task, and it is in
Especially the
fact
translation of poetry, I find it very challenging. So
it
that's
is
why I was
it is
asking.
it is, and it is more complex than I actually writing one's own thoughts. That's what I feel.
Exactly. Yeah.
When you are translating, whether it is poetry, whether or prose, language actually is not everything, because people have this strange notion. They say, oh, you know two languages, then you can be a translator. But nothing is far from the truth, because uh, language is not the only thing. Knowing two languages is not the only thing. So my recent work of translation, which Dr. Koshi was talking about, is a collection of 12 short stories by Indian authors, both in Bengali and Hindi, and it is called Timeless Tales in Translation. But before this, I actually translated two Bengali works by the prolific Bengali author Sushmita Saha. Both are bilingual works, and such translations from the vernacular to English is very important. One of the most important reasons being because it allows literature to be enjoyed by more people worldwide. That is the most important reason. It also helps in the growth and spread of regional literature. That we have to agree. But another reason which I can tell you is that living far away from India for such a long period now, what I have seen is that the second generation immigrants who are growing up far away from their country, their only way to access these immortal works is by way of translation. And in India too, it is the same story basically. In India too, great number of young Indians do not read in their mother tongue anymore, which is really a pity, which is really a pity. I really feel for that. So I strongly believe that this group must be given Indian tales, poetry, epics, literature in English translation. There is no other way. So that is the reason why I took up translating. And when you ask me about poetry is even more difficult, because it is not only, there are so many things in between the lines, there are which is there in the original text. When you have to translate it into English, the author will only the author knows what is there in the origin, in between the lines, but the reader of the English translation doesn't know that. So you have to keep all those nuances in mind, and then accordingly you have to translate. So it is difficult. If we have time, I would like to read one translation from Sushmita Saha's book.
Please
Quiet.
do. I would have already told you about like reading poetry, and can you do that right
Yeah,
now? And then I
this
will go
is
to.
basically the book. The first book. I don't know whether you can see it. Probably now you can see
Yeah,
it.
I can. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is Quiet Whispers of Our Heart, and like I said,
And
it
the
is
Bengali name is Kichu Dirghoshash, right?
Kobita Noy Kichu Dirghoshash. That was the Bengali name. So I would just read the translation maybe. It is a small poem. It's not a very long one. It is named, the name of the Bengali poem is titled as Digonto. Dikshunnapur Athoba Digonto. That was in Bengali. And I translated it as The Horizon and Beyond. And I said, Suddenly, it dawned on me that I have found my destined station, arrived where I have always wanted to reach. As a vision, it came in the middle of a night, in a dream. Or was it in that wondrous reverie, or in my imagination sublime that I beheld it there? It is a space where the land meets the sea, there where all love is washed ashore. Or is it where the earth yields herself to the sky, where the light has a celestial hue, where the air is a requiem of unconditional love? Towards that eternity, I tread a long journey from this birth to the next. The abode keeps changing, just like the horizon and beyond.
Wow, beautiful.
The original Bengali one is equally beautiful, Lopa. If you read it, you
I
will
will read it.
understand.
I will take the book from you when
Beautiful,
we meet.
beautiful, Chaitali.
Definitely.
Thank you
Uh,
so much,
Lopa,
Koshi.
Lopa, before we move any further, I would love to ask you something about your forthcoming book. And I have read it, and Dr. Koshi and I have written the introduction, or I don't know what I have written. I've written something, and Dr.
You have
Koshi has also
written
written
a
something.
beautiful introduction. I don't think
So,
my book is half as beautiful as your
no, no,
introduction.
it's a beautiful book. You write beautifully, and both of you, Dr. Ampat. In fact, all poets they have this habit of underestimating themselves. So you also one of those people. You write
I'm very
beautifully. Don't forget that.
self-critical. I don't like any of the stuff that
No,
I
no,
like.
you,
I still have a lot
you.
of reservations. That is the reason
Uh,
Dr. Koshi, you would love to know that I have written on the prompt. Some of them I didn't post because I want to make a lot of changes to everything. Right now, I'm in the midst of some very heavy editing, so I
okay,
didn't
tell
post my poems
us,
that
Lopa,
much.
tell us something about your book.
Okay, so my very recent it is actually the poems are they have been accumulated since quite a long time now, but I chose to collaborate with a very powerful words artist. She's a theater artist and spoken words artist, Priscilla Rice, and she is vice chair of the Dallas Office of Art and Culture, a very significant position here in the city of Dallas, Texas. So we used to perform together on a number of occasions. So after that, I approached her. She is a Mexican American or a Latino American woman, and I, being an Indian Bengali diaspora woman living in the US, we had envisioned this collection of poetry and monologues which we have performed on stage, which is regarding our ethnic identity and also our gender identity. So we are offering our own unique voices, our own unique personal spaces where the personal becomes political for different reasons. And Dr. Koshi and Ampat Koshi sir and Santosh Bakayadi, both of them know because they have read the poems and monologues and essays how personal and how political they are. It's an outpouring of not only the emotional feelings of being a diaspora woman, but it's our responses, our diverse and multiple responses to the various things which were happening around us, and our position, our stance in regards to that, keeping in mind our sexuality, our gender identity, and our ethnicity. Being
It is indeed a beautiful book, and Dr. Koshi will also second my view. It's a beautifully written book, and I love the
Yeah.
juxtaposition of both. Yeah, poets.
Thank
Yeah.
you. For the first time, I'm having some drawings in it. I just sent it to a publisher yesterday, and I'm waiting with bated breath to see what comes out of it.
All the very best,
Thank you
Lopa.
very much. Your best wishes will be, and because it has my drawings, it is like for the very first time. I was very like my writing. I'm very critical about my drawings too. But my daughters, especially my younger daughter, she keeps encouraging me to post my drawings more because she's learning art now. So we do some collaborations from time to time. So I have kept some of them in like in collaboration in accordance with the poems. So there is this Frida Kahlo painting which I did, which
Yeah.
I am presenting as a sketch there, not as a painting, but the rough edges of it as a sketch. And there are some photographs too. I take a special interest in photography. I did not take it seriously very much up till this, but let's see what comes out of it. They are like put in combination with my poems and monologues. Let's see what comes out of it, and your best wishes are always sought. And now
All
back
the,
to
all
now
the very
your poetry readings. Santosh Di, I would request both of you. Chaitali Di has read not her unique poem, but her translation. If we have some time, then we can listen to one of her original poems. But before that,
Sure.
I would like to request both of you to read a poem. Maybe you can choose a poem that is published, or you can choose to read a poem that you have written during this Naporimo month. Anything that you prefer.
I can't decide because I had chosen three, but I'm going to read from Vodka by the Volga, a poem which is very,
Oh,
very
yeah,
close to
that
my
would
heart.
be lovely. Yeah,
Because Dr. Koshi will also read from this. So this is a
wow.
poem which I love. In fact, this is the poem that I have written, one of the poems that I have written in Vodka by the Volga, part one. And part two is in the offing. And the offing, I don't know when it is.
Wow.
So this is
We'll
this
wait
is the
for it.
poem that I'm going to read. Yeah.
We are waiting for it.
Vodka,
Part 2, I mean.
yeah, it is in the offing. I said, where the offing is, we don't know. So this is the poem. A nonchalance so blue. A nonchalance so blue. Receding is fortune. The roll all over my escaping triumphantly. Culminations hidden anguish and miraculously and miraculous constellations of poem born unbidden. The glamour, the night,
Can't listen anything.
swish, swish words, reminding me of those lashes of wind. The young chap long back in shekels. I wonder.
Santosh Di, we can't listen to you.
Did she lose the connection?
She lost the connection. There was some disturbance coming, like in the form of an echo. And we could you listen to her when she was reading her poems?
it was the
No, no.
breaking. The
It
I
was
voice.
it was
interrupted it
breaking.
actually.
It was
It was
breaking.
echoing. The sound was
Yeah.
breaking off. She seems to be coming again.
Under the ministrations of living ages, it's you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Santosha, you have to read it again. In
Yeah, you have
broken,
to
you
read
went
it again.
in
Dili.
between.
There was some disturbance in the background, and we couldn't get
What
it.
happened?
We
The
couldn't
link.
Okay.
get it.
Okay.
Could you
A
please repeat?
nonchalance. Okay, I'll repeat it.
Yeah.
A nonchalance so blue. Receding memories scream for attention. Those buried secrets creep stealthily, roam all over my mindscape, grinning triumphantly. I cull impassioned words from hidden anguish, and miraculously, constellations of poems are born unbidden. The glamour of that exuberant clamor overpowers me, and the notes of the night stammer on, hammer on. Swish, swish, swish go the words, reminding me of those lashes of wind that the young chap Yegrushka had heard long back in the step. Like him, I wonder how the future will pan out, blundering into another day. All those pallid hues slowly merge into a life uncertain. The insects in my mind cheer on, the insects in my mind cheer on, stirring me once again towards my endless and impassioned thirst for life. My heart skillfully vaults over an eerie dirge, urging me, and quiet flows the dawn into view. The sky looks down. The sky looks down with a nonchalance so blue, but under the ministrations of hidden angels, soon changes its hue. Thank you.
Wow. Lovely. Sir, would you like to read a poem from Vodka by the Volga?
Yeah, I'd like to read a poem from Vodka by the Volga. Can you hear me, Lopa?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just reading it. This is the poem in it from my part of the book, which became the most famous one. It's the first one, and it's called White Nights, and it's for Fyodor Dostoevsky. Those are windows, not eyes. Those are windows, not eyes. Let's finish the absinthe. Come, my love, sit on my lap. Let me kiss your blue lips. Come, my love, sit on my lap. Let me kiss your blue lips. White nights, fair thighs. Watch the stars die one by one. The moon in your eyes drown. The dark give way to the sun. White nights, fair thighs. Watch the stars die one by one. The moon in your eyes drown. The dark give way to the sun. Do not listen to lies. We do not love to win or gain or ride for success, but for loss. Do not listen to lies. We do not love to win or gain or ride for success, but for loss. Failure is our heat and light. Let me kiss your black eyes, my pen dipped in black ink. No ruse, but spells and magic. Failure is our heat and light. Let me kiss your black eyes. My pen
Wow.
dipped in black ink. My no ruse, but spells and magic. So this
Wow.
poem became very famous from that book, from my side of it.
Yeah, there were
And
many
many people read
recitations
it.
of that
It is,
poem.
Beautiful
There were
poem.
many
yeah,
recitations. It's a
videos
beautiful poem. I also love that poem.
and
Beautiful one.
translations.
Yeah.
So
It's a
Beautiful.
beautiful
that's why.
Yeah.
book also. The book is very beautiful. It is so sensitive, the poems. I have read it, and it is one of my favorites, actually.
You have also reviewed it,
Thank
and
you.
Lopa has also reviewed it.
I
That's
think
So
good
this,
I
to
have
hear,
done a review
Chaitanya.
come interview. Do you remember that?
yeah, yeah,
Yes,
It was
yes,
yeah.
in
published in
Fasihi.
Learning
I
and
do, I do,
Creativity.
I do.
Was it
Yeah,
published in
yeah,
Learning and Creativity or
No, in Fasihi.
in
It is there
Farsi?
in
Yeah.
Fasihi.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 We'll
Fasihi.
reshare it. It's a wonderful review, wonderful interview, and we
Yeah, please
love
share it
writing that book.
once again today after the reading.
Yeah, we'll reshare it. We'll reshare it,
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that
sure.
and
We'll share
more
it.
people get to read it. I love taking these interviews. I have not done it for a long time now.
Long time.
So right now I'm compensating with all these talk shows which I'm having. So
good.
talking books is one of them, which is a very favorite place of mine. Chaitalidi, would you like to read some of your one of your original poems now? You have read one in translation, but just one original English poem of yours.
I am going to read one from the prompt that we got in the Naporimo this month, and this prompt is a yeah, this one this one actually was given by Sunita Singh, and when I saw the prompt, it was really very heavy prompt, but I thought, okay, let me try to write something on this, and the prompt was world without time, and this is what I wrote. What is time? A tagless baggage on a conveyor belt, circling endlessly, a waiting game, or a river of monotony. Life propped up on our elbows, celebrating eternal light, or a chugging reality where we sprawl with yesterday's regrets bitter on our lips. A world without time, how would it be then? To spin timelessly, not being at the call of the invisible pendulum, chiming the theory of probability and statistics. Not to race against the clock, forever locked in the present continuous, indivisible, in the timeless waves. Oh, to be in a world static, unchanging, frozen like a teardrop in the corner of your eyes.
Wow, so beautiful, so poignant.
It's a
Yeah,
beautiful poem.
I
Very
remember
poignant.
that
Very good.
poem because
I
of
remember
that
the poem. Yeah.
image of that conveyor belt. You know, that's very nice. I really like that image.
so challenging, you know. If Sunita is here, I would say, well done, Sunita.
It's a beautiful poem. Beautiful poem.
Thank you.
And the imagery
Dr.
was so
Koshi,
strong.
I
Dr.
think we
Koshi
can.
and Santosh Dee, would you like to read a poem each from this time, the Naporimo prompts that you have
No,
given?
I think Lopa, I think that we need to hear a poem from you now. I mean, you
Yeah,
Exactly.
can
yeah.
write
You
a
were
poem,
supposed.
Yeah.
I'm just the host today, me and Antara. So I
but
would
you can read.
really
You
love
can read
you
it.
to
We
That's
read.
okay.
want
You
you.
can read a
We
poem.
want you to
We want
recite.
you
Yeah.
to read a
We want you
poem.
to recite. Yeah.
Okay, time is very short. So I might read out the very first poem from the upcoming book which I was talking about, We Are What We Are. Let us see. Uh, yeah, if you insist, then just a very short one. This is a prose poem because I'm a lover of prose poems. Both of you know, right? That how much I love prose poems. Uh, like, because it is freed from the shackles of rhyme, freed from the shackles of meter, and all other shackles. You can write poems in the form of prose. And I am a lover of blank verse too. Many of my poems are blank verses, but prose poem is a form which I came to love lately. And I have a very favorite poet who is a prose poet who writes prose poems a lot. Her name is Anita Nahal in USA. All of you know her. So inspired her poetry. So this was published in Setu, and it was part of a combined poem by multiple poets and authors for their special issue, which was named Hyphenated Identities. And Anita Nahal, the Anita Di, actually guest edited it. So this poem of it was a part of this multiple poems by multiple authors. So it was a collaborative poem, and my part goes like this. And later, it was unnamed first. Later, when I made it part of this book, I kept the name as Diaspora. I let the rivers of my life run haywire, flirting with the uncertainty of miles that sprouted on summer nights. I would come out in the open, unabashed, an earth unknown, cracking wide open at the edge of an unnamed surrender. In that sacrosanct moment of a dark throated song, the confluence of the East and West wrote its script of diaspora within my being like an irreconcilable truth. Like the whisper of an omniscient God, come, come visit the rivers, the homes, the molten stories dying and born anew within me. Thank you. Very short and
Wonderful. Wonderful.
quite light writing.
Wonderful. Great. Great.
Thank you so much. And wouldn't, like, before we close, wouldn't we listen to any of your poems written on the Naporimo, like this month during the
Do we have
Naporimo?
the time? Do we have the
Yeah,
time?
just yeah, we have 5 more minutes. We can, and then we will take questions,
Okay.
and then we can wrap up if there are any
Okay.
questions from the
Okay.
audience.
Just a small poem, if you allow me, because this is prompt 18. Tonight, no poetry will serve. I think this was my prompt. Asleep but not oblivious of the unslept unsleeping. This line by Adrian Rich we were supposed to use. And the poem is, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Mhm.
sure.
Can you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Was I asleep? I was asleep. I was asleep. Even snoring, I guess. Somewhere, the unsleeping were creating a mess. And what a mess. Some sloshing and shoveling, removing the mess out of the way. The miasma of death choked me. The miasma of death choked me. I tried to massage a crick out of my neck. But what the heck? What the heck? Wasn't I asleep? And snoring too? But there I was, standing on a cliff. Not fiction, but fact. My neck stiff. I found, I found I was the lone survivor of a world gone awry. A chill ran up my spine. I stood absolutely still, right. My survivor's guilt elephantine. The wind had a sharp edge. The wind had a sharp edge. There was no way I could escape. There was no way I could escape this surreal scape. Lying almost comatose in bed, a part of me had crept out of me. The stench of all pervasive death, pushing me out of myself, sweating, sweating, sweating. The stench insinuated itself into my nostrils, clinging to spaces inside my skull. I could see smoke. I could see smoke drifting from carcasses charred like wood. What could I do? Nothing. Simply nothing. Maybe sing dirges, write obituaries, and heartfelt tributes. Honestly, I did care at least two hoots. From under the sweeping boughs of a fir, I watched the scorched earth fuming in rage, and a caged bird singing, and a caged bird singing, trying to revive the folks with their souls so dead. I choked. I choked, wondering, was it the caged bird singing that had awakened me to the woes of the unslept unsleeping? Or had the invisibles appearing in my dreams visibilized the world's woes to me, yanking me out of my comatose stupor? Relieved, relieved, relieved I was that I had been asleep but not oblivious of the unslept unsleeping. Thank you.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful is the prompt and beautiful is the poem.
Mhm.
And
So,
now, Dr. Samrat Kochi.
Dr. Koshi, can you read a poem from the one of the prompts?
Yeah, this Adrian Rich prompt was given by Reena Prasad. But this one is given by Santosh. I really loved that prompt, so I am reading that poem. You know, the prompt is from Charlotte Bronte, and the prompt is: Your love has tamed the haughty soul. So it's a love poem. I've only started loving you, a rainbow catching fire, a dragonfly not standing still, a pond without a weir. Love can tame a haughty heart. You are my sole desire. I must make haste to shower you with love, my honey pie, to make up for the blindness in these eyes this many a time. The time is drawing to a close, it's not too late to dance. Your love has tamed my haughty heart, my warhorse can still prance. 'Twas Yeats who said through Crazy Jane those immortal lines. Love has made its palace in the place of excrement. You have borne with me so long, our love's now throned in heaven. Your love has tamed my haughty heart, hungry to give again. Oceans cannot quench love, fires lessen its blaze. It is hungry, it is hot. Love is like a gaze that lasers through all walls. And your love is supremer, able to tame monsters, for nothing is it said. Love it conquers all. Your love has tamed my haughty soul forever to never depart.
Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So this is the
Beautiful poem. Beautiful poem.
completely soul nourishing, that the prompts and the interpretations that come
Come
through
out.
it, so many nuances and layers,
Right.
really fascinating because it unfolds our subconscious mind, right? Poetry is something which is so intriguing because of these outpourings of our subconscious. It's like a dream. When we
Yeah.
sleep, we don't imagine what we will dream then in our waking state, right? But in our dreams, we go to so many different layers of consciousness,
Right.
which we do not know in our waking. Poetry is something of that sort in my
That's
mind.
all.
And before we wrap up for today, is there any question or are there any questions from the audience that have come and we can take them? Antara, are there any questions? Antara Nanda Mandal, Antara of Blue Pencil and Talking Books, she is the person who is assisting us technically from the back end, and we need to give her a big hand for managing this whole thing for almost 1.5 hours now. And she has been
And
doing it in all the episodes from the back
and
end. And
let me add this also. Antara Nanda Mondal is an impeccable, meticulous editor. Yet to
Yeah.
come across a more meticulous editor than yeah, exactly. She's so punctilious and so
I
fastidious
can
about
tell
certain
you,
things.
like, I have been a resident editor at Blue Pencil. I have managed some of their, I have edited some of their projects, and every time I rely on her because I do not rely myself as much. I give the
Exactly,
developmental
exactly.
edits and copy edits, and if she's the boss, if she
Yeah, she's the
doesn't
boss.
give me the
And
final go ahead, I do not approve any of my edits myself. I'm very
and
critical of
and
myself, and she has no
Lopa, can you
fault.
believe
Believe
it?
me.
And
And
can you believe it? She scolds me many a time. ये क्या कर दिया दीदी? ये क्या कर दिया? यहाँ semicolon लगा दिया ऐसे ऐसे करके. So she's very very fastidious.
she is a
And
queen of
she's
punctuation, I can tell you.
yeah, very very meticulous.
And I know it
Very meticulous.
firsthand because the books that we have edited, like it, everything, she gives her final touches to each and everything.
Exactly.
Recently,
She's wonderful.
I have edited Riti's book, The Unwanted. She has even given her finishing touches there. Most of the editing I have done, but the proofreading part, the copy
She's
editing
very
part,
good.
she's a queen at that. So very
Yeah, she's very good. She's very good. She's very good.
There is
Yes,
Yes.
a there is a question from Sadbir ji. If you go to the comment box, Lopa, you will see
yeah.
there is a question.
Sadbirji, hi Sadbirji, thank you for the question. So she asks, what is new this Naporimo that is unique compared to before the, I mean,
The
the
previous
question
one.
didn't come properly, but I guess she said that it is like compared to the previous ones, what is unique this time? Can Ampat Koshi sir or Santosh Di?
Let me answer this, and Ambat Koshi will also answer this. This year I noticed that there are some newcomers who are writing wonderful poetry, and on
Yes,
each prompt they're writing 7 or 8 poems. And some of them they had not posted those poems there, but they have messaged me those poems, and I'm just floored by the poetry that they have written, the youngsters. So 3 cheers for them, and this is something very unique to
teachers.
TSL. And must yeah.
Yeah, I think that, one thing is that earlier we used to release the prompts in batches of 7,
Yeah.
but this time by limiting it to just 1 a day, now after this program, I'll be posting the next prompt. And this has helped people. You post a prompt and you give them like they have 24 hours. So this is one thing. And then the other thing is, actually, I've never seen so much enthusiasm before. And I think that's because the standard of the prompts, we started planning in February itself.
Yeah.
And the standard of the prompts, we have raised it tremendously. And that has made a big difference this time. Whereas
And
earlier, we would
it, it has become
sometimes,
so and it has become so addictive that they have already started asking for Pandarathon.
right.
Are we going to have Pandarathon this year? There were so many questions
Yes,
people have
of
been
course.
asking.
We,
So I
we,
think
we will have. Why not? We must have. Why not? So I hope Sadbir is satisfied with our answers.
Yeah, she has given a
Yeah.
clap.
I mean, to the point where, I honestly am frightened of, thinking of giving anyone the prize. I would rather give everyone the prize. That's what is different
Very
about this
difficult to choose
NaPoWriMo.
because there have been so many
Yeah.
very good, very finely nuanced writings from the
Right.
new poets.
exactly,
I'm not
exactly.
taking names because I don't
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to
No,
do
no.
any
We
I,
should, yeah.
favoritism of any
I
kind.
too,
But
I too don't want to take
there are
names,
so
but the youngsters are
powerful
doing a wonderful
poets.
job. The new ones,
The new
excellent,
ones are so
excellent.
powerful. And
Yeah,
there is art,
and
there are artworks as well. Not only
Right.
poetry, but artworks in
Art
response to the
also.
prompts, which is so amazing. I just want
Amazing.
to go to TSL every morning before going to work. And it's so
Yeah,
amazing.
it's
I'm
very
just I keep
addictive. Yeah, it's
reading
very
them
addictive.
also. Yeah, very addictive. Yeah. Are there any more questions, Antara, that you can put up here in the screen? Okay. So I guess then we can wrap it all up by giving my heartful thanks and gratitude to Talking Books, Blue Pencil, Antarananda Mandal for being the host
Thank you.
at such short notice because we have been wanting to do this for such a long time. I was planning to do a talk show in the month of March, which was the Women's History Month, and in March there was the International Women's Day too. But somehow the panelists which I wanted to bring together, they were all very busy with numerous events and happenings. They are always very busy, but in spite of that, I'm very grateful. This month it happened at last, and it is very significant because not only April is National Poetry Writing Month, April is also, we must not forget, the birthday. In April, there is the birthday of our bard, Shakespeare, right? And
Right.
then in a few days' time, the birth of another bard, the king of our hearts, Rabindranath Tagore, Gurudev, is coming, right? In the month of May. So, summing it all up, poetry, whether it is written in blank verse or sonnet or villanelle or prose poem or any other, either traditional form or non-traditional form, or breaking the shackles, it is always so therapeutic, so empowering. And we must not forget the power packed dissent, the feature of dissent of poetry, which empowers our society, which enlightens us. With that note, I would extend my thanks and gratitude to the viewers also who are listening today and who would be listening to the recording. So, one thing before we end, this video will be recorded and it is already showcased in the Facebook page of Blue Pencil. But then it will be also, the recording will also be there in the YouTube link of LnC-Silhouette magazine and Blue Pencil. So anybody who would want to see the recording can watch it both in Facebook, and even those who are not in Facebook, they can watch it in YouTube later. So with that, we end this session and we thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Koshi, for being there. Thank you, Santosh Bakaya Di, for being there. Thank you, Chaitali Di. In spite of all your busy schedules, we have got you together successfully today. This Saturday will be very memorable for all of us.
And thank you, Lopa, for being such a wonderful host. Thank you,
Lopa.
Antara,
It was
for being
really
us. Thank you, Antara. It was
good.
wonderful.
Thank you,
A
Antara.
great
Thank you. It was
Thank
my
you,
great pleasure and
Chaitali.
honor
Thank you,
to have you.
Santosh.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
and
Thank
all
you.
who are in the
Thank you,
audience.
all of
This will be an afternoon I will remember for a long time to come.
Yes, me
Thanks.
too.
It
Me
was
too.
wonderful being here with all of you. Lopa, you did a wonderful job, and it is always a pleasure to be with our two very important persons, Dr. Koshi, Dr. Bakaya, and I am doing this for the first time with both of you, but it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Fantastic. Chaitali.
Thank you,
Hope to see you
everyone.
again very
It's
soon.
wonderful.
Yeah.
See you all very
Yes.
soon.